Hey guys, it's Adish here. Welcome back to the second video in this Python video tutorial series by Learn Things. In this video, we'll be talking about variables and data types. We'll first see what are variables and how to use the variables. Then we'll talk about what are data types and what different data types are available in Python. So I've made this video a little longer because I want you guys to deeply understand what variables are because it is a core concept in programming and everything in programming revolves around variables. So let's not waste any time and let's get into the video. So what are variables? Variables are something that are used to store data, and it's not a permanent storage like files. Uh, so basically, when your program starts running, you might have different variables, and all the variables and the values of those variables cease to exist when the program stops. So the variables are only there when the program is running, unlike files which are present permanently in the storage, in the hard disk storage. So your computer has something called as RAM. So basically, variables have two things: a variable name. Let's say we have a variable called x, and it also have something called as variable value. That is basically the data that we want to store in that variable. So let's say we want to create a variable x with value 3. Then what will happen inside the RAM, both of these things will be stored. So we will store these variable name and its value in the RAM. So when the program stops running, this variable and its value is deleted after the program stops running. So now let's talk about what are data types. And so data types are basically, it decides what kind of data is being stored in a variable. Examples of data types could be float, integer, string, boolean. So let's not get confused with this. I will explain what everything is. So we have what we can store inside a variable are basically its types or data types. So for numbers, we have different types of numbers like integers or fractions. So integers will be stored in a variable of type int. Fraction will be stored in a variable of data type float. If we have some text, any text, it'll be stored in a variable of data type string. And if we have binary values like just 0 or 1, it's like a flag. If it is on or off, something is on or off, something like that. So for that, we will use a binary variable, which is basically a Boolean variable, and it will have a type bool. So let's see how it all works in Python, and let's write a short Python program and explore different variables and data types. So this is from our last video. We created a hello world program, and we have a folder called Python tutorials, and in that folder, let's create another file and name it variables and data types. And remember that extension py is very important. So name it the file name.py, and then let's activate our environment that we created. I've created an environment called Python tutorials, and let's run our new file. Its name is variable and data types. Okay, no output because we don't have anything. So to create a variable, we have a variable name. For this example, let's have x. And to declare a variable or initialize a variable, you write as x equals 3. So for those of you who already know a different programming language, you you might know that there are two steps to variables. Like you have variable declaration, where you declare a variable, and then there is variable initialization, where you initialize the variable with certain value. So in Python, you don't need to declare the variable. Whenever you initialize the variable, declaration happens automatically. For example, in language C or something, you'll write int x and then you'll write x equals 3. because you need to first declare the variable and then assign it a value, which is called initialization. But in Python, you don't need to do any of that. You can just write x equals 3, and it will automatically know the data type, because we have written 3 and it knows that 3 is an integer. It's a type of number and it's an integer number, so it will directly assign the type int. We can verify that. Let's print x here and see what happens. And let's print x like this, like how we did in the last video. Like we written our text inside the double quotes. So what happens if we write this text inside double quotes? And then let's also print the type of x, which will tell us what is the data type of this variable x. Let's run this code. Yes. Now when we do print x without the double quotes, we can see the value of the variable x is being printed, which is 3. Whereas when we wrote it with the double quotes, x is printed as it is. Its value is not printed, but x as it is printed. And when we printed the type, we can see the type is int, and Python automatically detected that 3 is an integer, and it gave the variable data type int. Now let's create more variables with different data types. So let's create a float variable with name float variable. Let's give it a value of pi, and then let's create an int variable, give it value 3. You can name variable anything. I'm just naming them float variable, int variable for our sake of like understanding here. And let's create a boolean variable and give it a value of true. It can only have two values, true or false. Let's try both. Bool variable, let's name it different. Bool variable false and false value. What the type did we discuss? Yes, we discussed string variable. So string variable. So yeah, whenever we write something in double quotes, it's a string variable. So let's say hello world, or let's say hello guys, welcome to one things. Yeah, so you can see if we here printed this x in double quotes, so it is treated as string, whereas when we printed x, it's taken as the variable name directly. Whenever we have double quotes, it's a string. And now let's print all of those values, float variable, int variable, and everything, and also print the types of everything, like all the variables. So we have wrote like print float variable, int variable, and all the variables. We can print all of these variables with separating them by comma. And again, same thing here. We print type float variable, comma, space, type int variable, comma, space, type bool variable. And let's see the output. Run it again, and yeah, we already have that 3x int from here, and then we declared and initialized these 5 variables and printed them. So first we have the value 3.1415, 3 true, false, and then a string. So yeah, everything is working as intended. And let's see the data types now. When we wrote 3.1415 and initialized to float variable, we can see Python automatically detected that it's a float variable. Also for int variable, same for boolean, it knows that true and false are of type bool, and since it's in double quotes, it's easy to detect that it's a string. The next thing I want to discuss in brief is typecasting, which is changing the types of variables. So if we have, uh, we know that int variable. Okay, let's have one more line here. Let's leave two spaces, just print nothing, and then we add on new lines. We know that int variable is of type int variable is of type int, and if we want this int variable and convert it to type float, what we'll do is just write float, and inside this type the variable name, which is int variable. And if we write type of float of int variable, it should give output as float. So let's run this and see what happens. Okay, so we have given two print statements and we have the two lines as space here just to separate our latest code. Yeah, we can see that int variable gives value 3 and type of int variable gives value as int, and then float of int variable gives value as 3.0. And you can see now it is converted from integer to a fraction, like a decimal with a decimal point, and type of that is float now. So yeah, that is all for this video, guys. What we discussed in this video is basically we explored what different variables, what exactly is variable, it is used to store data, and then what are data types. Basically data type tells us what kind of data is being stored in that variable. And then we saw some different common data types in Python, which are int, float, string, and boolean. So yeah, that's it for this video. Stay tuned for next videos, and thank you so much, guys, for choosing this Python video tutorial series. That's it. Thank you.